Good evening and thank you for joining us. Chinese President Xi Jinping receives a lavish welcome as he arrives in North Korea for a rare visit expected to focus on reasserting China's unique influence over the North in return for providing economic and political benefits. China's foreign ministry says President Xi will discuss the nuclear issue with Kim Jong-un, adding China's position and policy on the Korean Peninsula issue remains consistent and stable. Tracy Furness reports.
The airport building shows the national flags of China and the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, or DPRK. President Xi Jinping's plane arriving Monday for a two-day trip, the first visit by China's leader in 7 years. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and his wife Ri Sol-ju welcomed Xi and his wife Peng Li-yuan upon their arrival at Pyongyang's international airport, and a guard of honor awaits the visiting Chinese leader. Thousands of people, including children carrying balloons, staged a welcome ceremony for Xi at Kim Il-sung Square. In a signed article published prior to his arrival on Monday in Rodong Sinmun, the official newspaper of the DPRK, Xi said he looks forward to meeting with Kim to discuss the traditional friendship between the two countries and exchange views on the overall development of bilateral relations.
It's a high-stakes visit between the leaders of two countries who used to boast of a relationship in the mid-20th century that was described as closer than lips and teeth. Ties have grown colder over recent decades, and North Korea has turned more to Russia, sending troops and weapons to support the war against Ukraine. From Xi's perspective, this visit is an attempt to increase influence on a country that still gets most of its aid from China. Beijing has long worried that instability in the authoritarian, nuclear-armed North could seriously damage China if it spilled over the border.
Kim, meanwhile, is looking to cultivate a bloc of like-minded countries to counter American influence in Asia. Stronger ties with China will help Kim to break further out of isolation in a standoff with Washington over North Korea's illicit nuclear program. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
The Department of Justice and Security Bureau plans to introduce a subsidiary legislation to clearly define the classification mechanism for other offences under the Hong Kong National Security Law and the Safeguarding National Security Ordinance. Mo Sing-hai reports.
In a paper submitted to the Legislative Council, authorities set out two principles for the subsidiary legislation, which will be implemented under Section 110 of the Safeguarding National Security Ordinance, or SNSO. The principles are as follows. If the Chief Executive issues a certificate under Article 47 of the Hong Kong National Security Law, or HKNSL, or Section 115 of the SNSO to certify the act concerned in a criminal offence case involves national security, the case will be handled as one concerning an offence endangering national security. When a person is charged with an offence of endangering national security and is charged with or convicted of an alternative offence of the same act in a case, the alternative offence will be treated as a stand-alone charge of endangering national security. In a electoral panel meeting, some lawmakers questioned the necessity of enacting the subsidiary legislation. Apart from the government's constitutional responsibility, the Security Bureau says the principles can eliminate grey areas.
To make sure that it's also clear in court and that the judge would not need to interpret the law. Because very often in court, sometimes we have to argue whether those circumstances really fall under offences endangering national security. And now with the CE making it clear, by issuing a certificate, then there would not be any arguments in the court.
The Justice Department stresses the new legislation will not bring changes to existing offences, penalty or enforcement power.
We have not introduced any new offences under the subsidiary legislation. We are just looking at offences that are already defined as offences endangering national security. We are just making it more clear.
Authorities aim to enact the subsidiary legislation on the same day as it is gazetted. Moments 9, TVB News.
The first community living room in the new territories opened in JUN, with aims to support families living in subdivided units. Take a look. Located on Chinlong Street in JUN, the 4,200 square foot community living room will be open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m., except during severe weather conditions. Apart from a children's playroom, a laundry room, and a music room, the site also features a dedicated training room for children with special education needs and their parents, with relevant support services, and even robotics and 3D printing facilities. Cantonese classes and job training sessions are offered to new immigrants, as well as homework support services for children. Operated by the Hong Kong Young Women's Christian Association, the community living room is housed in sites provided by the Shaw Foundation under a 3-year arrangement. It's expected to serve around 500 families residing in subdivided units in the district. Speaking at the opening ceremony, Chief Secretary for Administration Eric Chan says the government remains committed to improving the well-being of grassroots families and ensuring resources are directed to those most in need through targeted poverty alleviation measures. Chan notes JUN has one of the highest concentrations of subdivided flats in the new territories. He says 8 community living rooms will have commenced operations within a 12-month period, bringing the total number to 14 within 2.5 years. 4 more facilities are in the pipeline to be rolled out within this year. The government is set to launch its pilot scheme for reservations for tourism hotspots at the Po Pin Chau Trail in Cyclone. Authorities are also considering the introduction of a ballot mechanism and real name reservation requirement to prevent scalping. Timothy Lee tells us more.
As one of the city's top landmarks, the High Island Reservoir East Dam attracts scores of tourists every holiday, with many hoping for the opportunity to take some unforgettable photos at the nearby natural spectacle of Po Pin Chau. In recent days, the Agriculture, Fisheries and Conservation Department reviewed data collected during the mainland's Golden Week holidays and found out tourist figures in the natural site during peak hours have surpassed its capacity. With authorities intending to introduce a reservation system for the city's tourism hotspots, some lawmakers questioned how the measure can be enforced.
Some people get the ticket first and then sell these tickets at a higher price afterwards. We need to curb the practice of ticket scalping. We need to implement other measures at the same time. For example, we need to use drones to confirm the location of the attendees. Regarding ticket scalping, we have drawn reference from other departments such as LCSD. Balloting is indeed a good idea. We will also consider using the real name registration system. If we implement this system, we hope that we can reduce malpractices. Ecological damage and license operation, oftentimes we see irregularities or non-compliances. So I'd like to know if the administration will identify some venues to better control the routes in these areas. We are also studying the possibility of putting in place special licenses for tour guides. We're working with the Travel Industry Authority, and together with the Tourism Board, we want to organize ecology tours for visitors.
This as the government encourages tourists to visit natural landmarks via group tours in hopes of lessening their impact on the ecological environment. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
A Palestinian man with Israeli citizenship went on a shooting rampage in several towns in central Israel on Sunday, killing a reservist and wounding 5 other people. The attack came at a time of heightened tensions following a spate of Israeli settler attacks. The attacker was killed by police. Police identified the attacker as a resident of the Arab town of Taipei in his 20s, but his precise motives weren't immediately known. The attack began with a shooting Sunday morning at a gas station near the town of Kokaf Yair, located on the Israeli side of the boundary with the occupied West Bank. Several other shootings were reported in 2 nearby Israeli towns and close to the Israeli settlement of Saliyat, inside the West Bank. Police initially feared a series of coordinated attacks, but eventually determined a gunman and an accomplice, who may have served as his driver, were involved. The suspected accomplice was arrested. Israel's military said a 55-year-old reservist was killed near Zur-Natan. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky meets in London with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, French President Emmanuel Macron, and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz to discuss steps to further support Ukraine in its war with Russia. The leaders spent several hours talking at 10 Downing Street before Zelensky and Starmer sat down for further dialogue. Zelensky says Europe must play a key role in any negotiations to end the war with Russia in the wake of a series of attacks on Ukraine. The European leaders back Ukrainian Zelensky's call for direct talks with Putin, urging US and EU involvement. The so-called E3 group of European nations have been prominent backers of Ukraine's following Russia's full-scale invasion in February 2022. The UK and France lead the coalition of the Willing Initiative to provide security guarantees for Ukraine as part of a peace process. Following the meeting, a Russian presidential aide tells local news agency TASS that Moscow maintains both open and private channels of communication with Ukraine. Pope Leo XIV meets members of the Spanish artistic, sporting, and civic society in the final public event at the end of his second day of his visit to Spain. Leo addressed an audience of 12,000 people at the Madrid Movistar Arena Stadium, which is a multi-purpose building for sports and musical events. The evening's entertainment featured flamenco dancers, classical guitar, and a moving meditation by Spanish actor Antonio Banderas on art, faith, and beauty. Leo spoke on the need to curb harmful language and images, saying every expression speaks, conveys, can hurt or heal, destroy or open horizons, sow division or awaken hope. He says technology progress should take into account the elderly, the poor, and those without a voice. Meanwhile, on the streets of Madrid, protesters against clerical sexual abuse complain they have been left in the dark about when a meeting is taking place on the issue and whether they are invited. Police say they will strengthen enforcement actions against illegal gambling during the World Cup period. The 2026 World Cup will kick off in Mexico on Thursday. Speaking to the media, the police say illegal gambling have turned digitalized these days. Individuals can place bets on gambling websites through social media. The force expects illicit gambling activities will rise during the World Cup, but it says enhanced publicity and enforcement work will be carried out over the period. Secretary for Transport and Logistics Mabel Chan says the government could prioritize the permit allocation for some ride-hailing platform drivers. The government announces 10,000 vehicle permits for ride-hailing services in the first phase of its regulation. In the Legislative Council panel meeting, a few lawmakers questioned the sufficiency of the existing quota. Chan says authorities may prioritize certain drivers or vehicles when it comes to the allocation of the permits. 9 new names have been unveiled for tropical cyclones this year in the western North Pacific and the South China Sea. The Hong Kong Observatory proposes dim sum as a contender. Other names include Hebi and Tomo, proposed by Japan, which are constellations. Cambodia contributed Koki, which is a local large tree with a hard flesh. South Korea put forward the name Narai, which means wings. The new names will replace old ones of tropical cyclones which caused serious casualties and economic losses. Retired names include Typhoon Tolaji, Super Typhoon Usagi, Typhoon Trami, and Super Typhoon Kongray in late October 2024 caused 159 deaths. Also retiring is Super Typhoon Manyi, a name put forth by Hong Kong which left 14 dead in the Philippines in 2024. Meanwhile, Jebi has been retired because of inappropriate meaning in other languages. Unstable weather is expected to linger over the next 2 days as heavy rain pours across the city, with the amber rainstorm warning signal and the red rainstorm warning signal and the thunderstorm warning now in force. This as the city saw intense downpour overnight. The area of severe thunderstorm associated with a broad low-pressure trough and active southwest airflow developed rapidly over Hong Kong in the early morning, ushering in heavy showers and thunderstorms. At 12:45 a.m., the observatory issued an amber rainstorm warning signal. Half an hour later, it's raised to the red rainstorm warning signal. Precipitation was generally around 60 millimeters across districts. Kowloon East was lashed even harder, with cumulative rainfall topping 100 millimeters. While the rainstorm warning signal was hoisted, the observatory recorded about 1,000 cloud-to-ground lightning strikes. As the rain bands moved away from the city, the rainstorm warning signal was downgraded to amber at 3:50 a.m. By 5 a.m., all rainstorm warnings were cancelled. The forecaster reminds the unstable weather is here to stay over the next 2 days. The observatory scientific officer says a broad trough of low pressure and active southwesterly airstreams are expected to continue affecting the South China coast on Monday and Tuesday. For the remainder of the day until Tuesday morning, Hong Kong's weather will remain unsettled with occasional showers, violent thunderstorms, and heavy downpours. Showers are expected to ease off midweek, but because of the influence of southerly airstreams, the unstable weather will be back over the weekend through early next week. And that's the news. Thank you for watching.